Hey, welcome, Chris. Thanks for doing this. All right, this is part of our veteran transitioning into Agile and IT series. I know we talked earlier, and I thought it'd just be awesome to have you on this as a resource, as someone that's been in a hiring manager position. For those that don't know, I'm Nate Amadon. I run a Agile consulting firm, also a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force Reserves. And we put together this series to help transitioning veterans kind of understand this space and learn how to better transition into it. Chris Kavas is joining us here. And I don't know, Chris, you want to give us a overview of your background, what you
Sure,
did in
give
the
you a quick
military?
review. So, 9-year veteran, sonoman on fast attack submarines on the East Coast. Got out in '95, got my degree, and started working for a number of companies. Started writing code, and then transitioned into program management and agile consulting and agile coaching. I've worked for numerous companies, including Qualcomm, Nokia, Continental Tires, Starbucks, and a few other small startups as well. And I have built project management offices from scratch. I have built project management and agile teams from scratch. I have led agile transformations, and I have done division level agile coaching.
Awesome. And then most recently, you were manager of Agile Delivery at Starbucks. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, so I headed up a team of program managers and scrum masters, and we work for one of the divisions inside of Starbucks.
Gotcha. Okay, so in that hiring manager perspective, and so you've got a ton of experience. You've been in the military. We got connected through the veteran network as well. If you're a transitioning veteran out there and you want to get into this space, like just as at a high level, what's some of the advice you'd give?
So find out what lane you want to be in initially, and make sure you've got the level of experience you need to be able to execute in the work. What I mean by that is if you want to write code, then start writing apps. Then start learning how to write code and get that going. If you want to do more product management, learn about those areas, get those certifications. But nowadays, we were saying earlier, certs are everything, more so than any sort of college degree for most of the commercial companies out there. But essentially, is understand which area you want to get into, especially in today's market, is very competitive. And so it's important to make sure that you've got to be able to communicate a level of experience and a level of ability to execute in the jobs you're applying for.
Yeah, perfect. And so you mentioned certifications, right? So the space we're in obviously is we're in the agile consulting, project management, maybe product owners. So what kind of certifications did you look for, when you were posting jobs and which ones do you think are
Okay.
valuable?
So fundamentally, certifications to me mean that they understand the vernacular, they understand the basics.
Right.
It doesn't tell me whether or not an individual can actually do the work. It tells me they know the fundamentals about it. And so I'm looking for Agile, certified Scrum Master, certified product owner, but as a baseline. All the other ones are nice to haves and they're great. But that's usually what I'm looking for. Then what I'm looking at is what they've actually done. If they're just getting into the field, that's one story. But if they're coming in and they've done this for a while, that's what I'm looking at. What have you done and how did you move the needle where you're at? And that's more important to me than anything. And oddly enough, degrees, I don't even look to see if they've graduated college. Like I
Right.
said before, I've hired people that never went to college at all and were absolutely awesome. And I've also hired people that had master's degrees
Right.
and couldn't execute. So for me, it's really the certifications tell me you know the basics, but your experience tells me what you're capable of doing.
Right. So would you think experience trumps certifications?
Yes, for me, it would, but I would still want to see baselines. In fact, for initial screens, when I'm talking with HR about what resumes they give me, because I get inundated by thousands of them,
Right.
and the initial screens are, I want to see a Scrum Master, the product owner certification. And if they don't have that, then filter that out. If they do have that, then let's start looking at experience.
Right.
And that's generally the way that they'll go. And then I'll get the stack of resumes and I'll start looking at them myself and then pick, given the level of experience or what I'm looking for, which ones we want to bring in for phone screens.
Interesting. So, okay, so you get this, you put out a job placement, hey, you want to hire a Scrum
Right.
Master. And so for you, baseline, it would be CSM, also CSPO, even for a Scrum
Yep.
Master.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be Scrum Alliance. Scrum.org works just as fine. There's other groups as well too. I think even now the PMI has their own Scrum Master cert. I think
Yeah,
something of that nature. So a cert of some ilk is what's important. And the
gotcha.
reason why I say that is because they come in different prices. And by the way, I don't really care if they've expired because
Right.
keeping them up to date isn't as important to me as the fact that you got it. And so the Agile Scrum Alliance, it's like anywhere from like 600 to 2 grand, depending upon who you're taking it from.
Right.
Yeah, but if you go to scrum.org, I think PSM1 is what, 300-400 bucks. I think it was.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
wild the different price points and the
yeah,
variance between which website you land on. I'll also say like, hey, for the transitioning veteran community, there's a ton of these veteran programs out there that
yes.
offer it for free or offer it at discount or at cost. So it's worth taking the time to dive into it. So this is actually an interesting thread that I don't think a lot of people know about because they don't have a lot of access to someone who is directly hiring for these types of positions. So how many resumes would you get on the filtered out stack? Would you get the top five? Would you get 20? Would you get 50?
No,
Like,
normally I'll get about, depending what I'm looking for, anywhere from 5 to about 20 from
okay,
HR. So assume that, and this is why when people applying, you see so many people saying, I applied thousands of places and no one said, however, it's because there's like thousands of resumes being applied across the board.
right.
Before I even know what's being happening there, though, what I get from HR is just a small stack of this huge list that they just filtered out before I even got to it.
Right. So they'll post a job and then maybe let's say 500 people apply, you'll get 5 to 20.
Yes,
Okay. Can if someone hands you a resume with for that job description, could you bypass that? Like could
I
you
have. I have. If I know somebody and I've worked with them before and they say, hey, listen, this is a really good person that could really do this job, and they send that to me, I to the HR say, listen, let's prioritize this one.
Gotcha. Okay, so
And in fact, we've actually done that before where we've had contractors
mhm,
and the contractor, everyone likes them. And because in order to be fair, when you have the job rec, the contractor still has to apply for it and interview for it.
yeah.
And then people outside come in. And we've had that where we've actually brought in the person they've interviewed and brought in the contractor at the same time.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, and I think that that's another thread too, especially if someone's watching this that doesn't understand contract and FTE. So there's firms that it's really what we do at Form 100 as well. The firms that you can come in as a temporary contractor into a role, and that's a great way to get a foot in the door because then you start knowing people, you know the managers, and you can kind of bypass that HR process.
Well, also one in the hands worth two in the bush. If I have a contractor that's executing and really just, kicking ass and taking names,
Yeah.
will always prioritize that person when I have a rec. And a lot of times, because depending upon the contract in question, right? So there are certain contract rules that after 18 months, I think it's on a maximum, but 12 months usually the maximum, you have to take a 3 month break.
Yeah.
And if you're an hourly contractor, that's 3 months of no money,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
And so a lot of times we don't want to lose that person because they've done so well and ingrained themselves so much in the system as far as adding value that we will go out of our way to make a rec just to hire them so we don't lose that contractor resource.
Right. Right. So, for those transitioning out, I mean, looking in at the contract option
Right.
isn't bad. I mean, it's a great way to get your foot in the door. Okay, I'm fascinated. I'm going to keep going down this thread
Yeah, go
because
for it.
okay, so uh because there's also a networking aspect here too, right? Of like how you can get your resume in front of people who hear about openings and can bypass that HR process some. And I deal with a lot of transitioning folks and I tell them like, look, you're better off talking to someone than sending in 10 or 20 resumes online, right? I mean,
It's literally like a 2 to 3% max return rate on cold applying right now. And part of the issue is that the applicant tracking systems that they're using means that 90% of the time your resume is filtered out before a human even knows you applied.
Right. Right. No, and wild. Okay, so let's say they get through that process and you've got
Right.
that stack of 20 on your desk. You know, how much time did you spend on each one of those? I mean, you can't spend 20 minutes on each one diving deep. So what do you look for on a resume?
I'm looking for every role they've done before. What did they do to move the needle? What did they do to make a difference? What was the scope of the responsibility? So I don't just want I do generate these reports and I scrum mastered 5 teams, whatever. What I want to see is results from that. What happened is because of the work you did. And that's what I'll scan for. When I say scan, I'm spending maybe 2, 3 minutes on a resume
Right.
because of how many are going through, especially if the first stack of 20 I don't like and I want the second stack, they'll send me others.
Yeah.
And so I'm spending very little time on the resume. That's why they say keep it to 2 pages. Anything more than 2 pages, no, because the first thing I do is I go down and see what certs they got. Great. Okay. What companies they were? Okay. What they do? Okay. Got it. What did they deliver? Got it. And that's how I make my decision. And that will then let me know which ones I want to do for a phone screen. And then I would assign those people on my team to do the initial phone screen where we take a look at culturally, they look like they're someone that we'd want to work with as a part of our team. And are they able to answer some basic questions that tells us that the resume actually is sincere?
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, you know, and for transitioning veterans, that's always a struggle, right? And I see this a lot where, um, you know, we always talk, the metric a lot of times in the military is how much responsibility did you get,
Hmm.
right? So they'll say I managed $5 billion worth of, you know, tanks or whatever, whatever that metric is,
Right.
right? But a lot of times it's a struggle to talk about like, well, what did you do? Because especially on in the officer side, you know, the military is promoting to make the next like general or admiral. And so the amount of responsibility you're given is a good metric for that. But a lot of times in the private sector, they're hiring less for that and more for like, can you do this thing and can you add value to the team?
It's all about adding value. It's all about how can you help us make sure we achieve our goals. And
Mhm.
that's what they care about. So I manage projects that equated to $6 billion worth of great. Great. That helps me understand you know how to do big projects. What did you do? What did you move forward? How did you get that there? Right? What did you ship? That's what it comes down to. And so being able to translate what you've done, and this is important that when you're going from military to civilian, or like my people call it civilians,
Mhm.
you want to make sure that you're able to translate what you did in a way that the person that's never been in the military before can look at this and say, "Oh, I need that."
Right.
And the reason why I say that is because I know this is back in '95, but when I got out, nobody cared about the 9 years in the submarine. Nobody cared about the work working on the high-tech sonar equipment, of doing all the maintenance work and
Right.
all the programming you had to do for the systems and whatnot. Oh, you have a degree. Okay, well, I'll talk to you. And then I found that I was actually competing with the same people that had just graduated from SDSU,
Yeah.
and that was interesting. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that your military career work you did is translated in a way that people in civilian world can understand that well, that's what you did. So stay
Right.
away from clear from acronyms and whatnot. Talk
Yep.
about what you did and how it actually helped. What you're able to do from that.
Right. Yeah, and that's a lot of what we do is really help try to get those resumes ready. So when we do put them in front of a client
Right.
for a contract position, they're able to understand what it actually is. And also that doesn't mean like don't make stuff up, right?
No,
Like there's no scrum masters in the, you know, in the Army infantry. So
right.
like but you can draw those parallels between like how they are basically the same, right?
Did you lead a team? I mean, even like doing deck div. You've led a team of 6 to 12 people, and you were able to execute on improving the safety and stability of the boat in question,
Yep.
or talking about the fact that you were able to sit there and manage the projects of a large scale, especially if you're doing something like on an aircraft carrier, right, which is like a small
Mhm.
city,
Right.
then you can talk to that level of capability. How much did you have to do to coordinate? How much do you have to do to execute? Did you write code? Did you actually work along with people actually building out software packages or
Yeah.
scripting out things for the work you were doing? And that's what you want to talk to more so than helping underwater acoustic surveillance, which no one
Right.
cares about.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. That good. Thanks for going through that. I actually want to keep going though on once you get someone to a phone screen or an interview. All right. What are you looking for in an interview? Like,
I'm
what's
I'm
important
looking
to you?
for, first and foremost, I want to see fit and capability. So I'm looking for how they actually present themselves,
Mhm.
which is very important. And also, I'm looking for how they're able to talk to what they did and what questions they're asking of me are going to be the really important pieces there. And while in a phone screen, which is usually about a half an hour, I'm not getting into deep technical things. That'll be later, right?
Sure.
This point here, I'll ask some basic questions. Also, tell me about a time when, and the behavior called behavioral based questions. So when someone says, "Tell me about a time when you managed a team of 6 people and someone wasn't doing what you need them to do," what's very important is to be able to say, here's the company I was with, or here's what I was doing, and here's what happened, and here's what I did for it,
Right.
right? As opposed to don't start talking about what you would do if you were in such a situation.
Right.
I want to see specifics. As I'm looking at the resume, I'm asking questions based upon what they said they did, basically to see a, were they honest with me, and b, what did they learn from that, what did what how did they actually go about executing on it.
Right.
So there may be certain things I'm looking for. For example, if there's a project I'm looking for, primarily I'm hiring project managers as well, that where there's a lot of heavy coordination across multiple dispersed teams, I may start asking questions about when you get teams that are not responsive and what you've done. And I would like to be able to have specifics about when you've encountered that sort of scenario. And it doesn't have to be an exact same scenario. It could be something in the military you've done, but
Right.
how you actually fixed it and solved it.
Yes. Yeah, and we talk a lot when we do interview prep, right? I mean, you kind of alluded to the STAR method of answering a question. I think that's valid. And someone told me when I was transitioning once that the term "for example" is your lifeline, right? And so if you can always, because they'll ask a question like, "Hey, have you ever done this?" And a lot of times in the military, we just go, "Yes."
Exactly.
Of course, but if you can have those examples, then you can actually be able to speak to those things more and help you translate a little better. So prep is super important, right? I mean, you can,
Prep beforehand. Don't go
yeah,
in cold. Get somebody you can actually do this with, have them ask you questions, and so you get comfortable doing it. If you go in cold, the first 3 times you interview, you're going to fail miserably. The fourth time, you'd be great because you just had 3 times of practice.
right,
Why do that to yourself, especially in this environment, right?
yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And then the other piece I'd talk about, and I'd be interested if you ever come across this, are not talking too long.
Yes.
So you have a 30-minute interview, or a phone screen, let's say. You probably do it on a Teams call or on
Hmm.
a call of some sort. I tell everyone like you want to answer the question, you want to give an example, but you can't talk for 15 minutes on every answer.
Clear, concise. If you're a rambler, that's actually a mark against you.
Right.
But you don't want to be so concise that it's rote. You
Mhm.
want to make sure that you've got the level of
Mhm.
personability, I guess is a way to say it. You want to be able to talk to what you've got going on, but keep it clear and concise.
Yep. Yeah. Two to 3 minutes is usually like a good metric that we
Yeah,
push towards.
yeah.
Yeah.
And also, if you're doing over Teams or Zoom, you want to make sure that you've got everything set up. And that
Mhm.
includes your own presentation. Make sure if you don't have a virtual background, that your background isn't messy. I don't want to see your laundry.
Right.
I've had candidates come in with just coming back from a workout in
Hmm.
a t-shirt,
Yeah.
full of sweat, or not bothering to even brush their hair.
Hmm. Right.
So you want to make sure that you've got the level of presentation there, because even that's the only time you're going to be able to prove yourself is in that first 30 minutes.
Right.
And it's the only experience they have. And it sucks. It's wrong, because you cannot tell what a person's like or the capability just by talking to them for 30 minutes.
Yep.
However, this is the world we live in. So how do you make sure that you learn the skills of interviewing and presenting yourself, which is different from the skill set you're going to need to be good at your job?
Right. 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 It means get in, right? I mean, that's, and like you
Yeah.
said earlier, which is, no one cared about your military experience. Yeah, and that's true. And the longer you're in the military, the harder it is to transition. But once you do start getting some experience, then now your military experience becomes more valuable in some way, right? It
Yeah.
becomes more interesting.
I will always prioritize a veteran. And part of that is the fact that we are have been it's been ingrained in us. It's better to be an hour early than a minute late.
Hmm.
And when we say we need to get something done, then it's on us to get it done.
Hmm.
And we also understand the level of camaraderie. We understand what shipmate means, right?
Yep.
The way it was described before is I may hate you enough to want to sit and beat the living snot out of you, but I will defend you with my life because you're my shipmate.
Yeah.
That kind of model of teamwork, of
Hmm.
being there together, is actually something that you can't just learn it. It's
Right.
kind of something you just build over time. And so that's why I like having veterans on board, because I know that they're responsible.
Right. Yeah. I mean, obviously that's what we do. So I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so one other question I think that is important, and I know people will be interested, especially from a position of hiring manager. Um, we there's a lot of push to network, right? There's a lot of push to like, hey, let's get in front of people, and that's obviously super valid. But that can go the other way, right? You could you can be networked in the wrong way. So I guess my question to you is like if someone were to reach out to you or wanted to, you're the hiring manager for a position at Starbucks, like what's a good way to reach out, like versus what's a bad way to reach out?
Well, that's a good question. Typing me your resume on the first connect on LinkedIn, probably not the best thing to do. If you get pointed questions about it, I'm happy to help with that there, especially if we're both fellow vets.
Hmm.
Hey, listen, I'm looking at this position over here. What do you think? I'm always trying to take time for that there. A lot of times what you want to do when you're going for a job, going on LinkedIn, which is a great tool to have, find the recruiters, make sure that you know that they are, and get involved in the communities. Because if you're in a, like, say, the Scrum group on LinkedIn,
Right.
you can actually talk and message with your third level connections,
Right.
which you can't do cold. But
Hmm.
then you can establish that, and you can have those connections, and you can reach out and say, hey, I'm looking at applying for this role here at the company there, and this is what I've been doing, what do you think?
Yep.
Or something like that, or saying, hey, listen, can I have a couple minutes of your time and just ask some questions on that, or whatever, or something that I think is perfectly fine. What is that it's saying that here's my resume, what do you think I could do inside the job? That's the worst thing to do.
Right.
And the other thing, you say, I need a job. Here's what I got. What do you got? That's not going to happen. A
Yeah.
lot of times, what you need to do is say, I just looked in the boards. I saw a message that this role here was open. I'm trying to get into it. Well, can you help me with something?
Yep. And I try to mentor when I talk to people about this is I think networking is super important, but I think you should do it in the right way, right? You
Yes.
should do some research ahead of time. Because a lot of times managers will just say, great, look at the job board. But so if you at least do the research, you see that there's a job opening, and then network without just asking for help. Without You can ask for help, but without asking for something tangible, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
You really just want to build connections. You want to, and like you said, come with pointed questions, and then be really clear on how someone can help you out.
Yes. That is very important. I mean, it is sales.
Hmm.
That's not beat around the bush. And you don't want to do, I mean, the worst thing you want to do is knock on someone's door and say, hey, I've got something to sell you,
Right.
right? The chance of you closing a deal is very slim.
Hmm.
And the same thing works with networking, and especially like on something
Yeah.
like LinkedIn, which is a primary tool that I always use for a lot of my networking, keeping in
Right.
contact what's going on. And a lot of that is just keeping up to date with what's happening and being able to establish yourself some level of competency, some level of being able to contribute in the groups you're in
Hmm.
some level, so that way people can see that you have a level of knowledge and ability,
Yeah.
because that will go far. If I'm connecting with somebody on LinkedIn, they want to apply for a job that I've actually posted on LinkedIn, and I see that they've actually been active, involved, and they have thoughts on this, and I can see their posts because your profile, you can see what they
Yeah.
post and whatnot.
Hmm.
That will probably be a differentiator for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess that we can wrap this up here. Uh, but LinkedIn is also super important, and I think
Yes,
if you got someone's resume, whether they're a veteran or not, do you go to LinkedIn and find them?
always,
Always.
always. Yeah, and in fact, what the big thing is, remember, LinkedIn is your professional view of you. It is
Right.
not Facebook. It is not political. It is not social.
Yep.
When I look on LinkedIn and I see people complaining about how much they hate their boss or how much their job sucks and whether they how much they're playing hooky or whatever, good chance no one's going to hire you because they see those posts on LinkedIn. You
Yep.
want to make sure your professional view is there, your professional opinion, your ability to further your professional career. That's what LinkedIn does for you.
Yeah, and so I do that too. If I get a resume, first thing I do is go to LinkedIn, and so your LinkedIn profile needs to match your resume, right? And so
Yes,
that's also another flag, right? And so I think that that's just so important. So yeah, and so I guess wrap this up. Recap is networking's important,
yes,
right? Networking the right way is important. Uh, you know, uh, Also how to prep for an interview, come prepared, right? Have questions, keep your answers short, sweet, and concise. I think you
right.
say concise. Certifications are good. Okay.
Certifications are probably more important than a degree.
Yep.
And also, if you're coming fresh from the military into the civilian world, you want to make sure you're able to clearly and concisely convey what you did and how it added value in a way that a non-military person can look at and understand what
Right.
you're saying, so they can recognize what your capabilities are. That's going to be critical, because if they see you have no commercial experience, it's really it doesn't help you.
Mhm. Yeah, and yeah, and so I think we covered a lot of stuff here, and I think your perspective, this is super valuable for me, Chris, and because I always love picking the brains of hiring managers. You're also a potential client for us type of scenario, so
Mhm.
this is super valuable for me as well, and hopefully some people got value out of it. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Of course, wonderful. I'm happy to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Chris.
Okay, thank you.